It was December 31st, 1944, the last day of the year, and high above the clouds over Germany, two young American pilots were flying a mission that would become one of the strangest and most unbelievable stories of World War II. In the cockpit of a B-17 bomber named the Little Skipper sat Second Lieutenant Glenn Rojon, with his co-pilot, Second Lieutenant William Leake, by his side. They were part of a massive formation of flying fortresses sent to bomb the oil refineries around Hamburg, one of the most heavily defended targets in Nazi Germany. The sky was crystal clear, but below them waited a storm of anti-aircraft fire. As they neared the target, flak erupted all around, black clouds of exploding shells rocking their plane and filling the air with deadly shrapnel. The formation was being torn apart. One by one, bombers were hit, bursting into flames and spiraling down toward the earth. But Rojon and Leake pressed on, holding their course as bursts of flak exploded so close they could feel the shock through the controls. "Steady," Rojon muttered, his eyes fixed on the smoke-marked target below. It was time to release the bombs. The bomb bay doors opened, and a stream of 500-pound bombs fell from the sky, whistling toward the oil fields below. Moments later, fire and smoke erupted across Hamburg. "Right on target," yelled Joe Russo, the ball turret gunner, from his cramped position under the plane. The mission had succeeded, but the nightmare was far from over. The formation turned back toward the sea, trying to regroup, but their relief was short-lived. German fighters, Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, were waiting. "Bandits, 11 o'clock high," someone shouted over the radio. Then came the jet-powered Me-262s, faster than anything the Americans had ever faced. The jets screamed past, cannons blazing, slicing through the formation before vanishing into the distance. Bf-109s followed, darting between the bombers like hornets, spraying bullets and cannon shells. To their right, a B-17 named Faithful Forever took heavy fire. Its pilot, Lieutenant Leo Ross, called out, "We're going down." Somehow he managed to keep the plane level long enough for his crew to bail out, and they parachuted safely to the ground. But the sky was now chaos, tracers, explosions, and burning wrecks falling from the clouds. Just when it seemed hopeless, a squadron of American P-51 Mustangs roared in, chasing off the enemy fighters. "Thank God," someone whispered. The remaining bombers cheered as the silver fighters dove through the German lines. But soon the P-51s peeled away to defend other groups, leaving Rojon and his battered formation alone once more. They pressed on toward the coast, engines straining, wings riddled with holes. "Almost home," Rojon said quietly, seeing the North Sea ahead. But fate wasn't done with them yet. "Bandits, 1 o'clock high," came another desperate call. More German fighters were climbing fast, ready to finish what the flak had started. The bombers tried to stay tight, but turbulence scattered them. More aircraft were hit. Rojon fought to hold position behind the lead plane, a B-17 called 9 Lives, flown by Lieutenants McNabb and Vaughn. Then, without warning, 9 Lives took a direct hit to the cockpit. Both pilots were killed instantly, their hands still gripping the controls. But the engines kept running, and the dead plane began to climb, slowly, steadily, right into the path of the Little Skipper. Captain Ethan Porter, flying nearby, saw disaster coming. "McNabb, pull up! You're going to collide!" he shouted into the radio, but there was no reply. Seconds later, the two bombers smashed together in midair with a deafening crash. The impact threw Rojon and Leake forward, as glass shattered and metal twisted around them. "What the hell was that?" Leake yelled. Rojon looked out the side window and froze. "Bill," he said quietly, "we're sitting on another bomber." He was right. 9 Lives had crashed up beneath them, its nose jammed deep into the Little Skipper's belly. The two bombers were now locked together, both still flying but out of control. Inside 9 Lives, the ball turret gunner, Staff Sergeant Edward Woodall Jr., was alive but trapped. With no power to his turret, he used a hand crank to crawl out, finding himself in a nightmare of crushed metal and torn wires. Through the wreckage, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The ball turret from the little skipper had been driven straight through the top of his plane, and inside it, Gunner Joe Russo was still alive, but trapped. He couldn't move. Wardle could only watch as Russo pressed his hands together in prayer, whispering, "Hail Mary, full of grace, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death." The rest of the crew could hear him through the intercom. Co-pilot Leak removed his headset, unable to bear it. He later said that hearing Russo's final prayer was the hardest moment of his life. Meanwhile, fire was spreading fast. The left engine of 9 Lives was burning, and the flames were licking up toward the little skipper's wing. Rojan and Leak knew that if they didn't act fast, the 2 bombers would explode. Rojan gritted his teeth and shouted over the roar of the engines, "We can't ditch in the sea. We'll never make it. We have to get to land so the others can jump." With the controls shaking violently, he throttled down, easing the plane into a slow, wide turn. Somehow, impossibly, the 2 bombers responded. They were flying, together. Witnesses later said it looked like 2 giant dragonflies stuck together. The German coast was coming into view, but so was more flak. Shells burst around them, the sky lit with explosions, and inside the cockpit, the heat was unbearable. The fire was now burning through the fuselage. The pilots could feel it on their faces. Down below, German soldiers on the island of Wannergerm stared up in disbelief. "Don't shoot," a Wehrmacht officer said quietly. "Those men are already dead." But they weren't. Rojan grabbed the intercom. "We're over land. Everyone bail out. Go, go, go!" In the back, the surviving crew rushed to the tail hatch, trying one last time to free Russo. They called his name, but his turret was crushed tight, fused with the wreckage. "We can't move him," one man said helplessly. "There's no way out." Russo kept praying, his voice calm even as the fire surrounded him. "Hail Mary, full of grace, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death." One by one, the others jumped. Now, only Rojan and Leak remained. "Bill, you've got to go," Rojan shouted. "If you stay, we'll both die." But Leak shook his head. "If I jump, you'll lose control. I'm staying." The ground was coming up fast. The cockpit was full of smoke. They could barely see. "Steady her, steady," Rojan yelled. "Sweet Jesus, hold her straight." The 2 men braced for impact. A moment later, the world exploded. The bottom plane, 9 Lives, hit first, bursting apart in a fireball. The force launched the little skipper back into the air for a brief, surreal moment before it slammed down again, skidding across a field and tearing through a wooden building. Then, silence. Somehow, both pilots were alive. They crawled out of the wreckage, covered in soot and blood, stunned that they were even breathing. Rojan looked over and saw Leak patting his pockets for a cigarette. He found one, placed it between his lips, and was about to light it when a German soldier came running toward them, waving frantically. "Stop!" he shouted. "You'll blow us all up!" He pointed to the rivers of gasoline spilling from the broken wings. Even in captivity, the absurdity of it made Rojan laugh. Incredibly, 6 crew members from the little skipper survived, along with 4 from 9 Lives. The rest were gone, including Joe Russo, whose final prayer still echoed in his comrades' memories for the rest of their lives. Rojan and Leak were captured, but later released when the war ended. Both were awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for their actions, though Rojan rarely spoke of that day. When people asked, he always gave credit to his co-pilot. "In all fairness to Bill Leak, he's the reason I'm alive," he would say. It was one of the most incredible survival stories of the entire war. 2 massive bombers colliding in midair, locked together like living steel, flown by 2 men who refused to give up. They turned certain death into a controlled landing, saving most of their crews through courage, teamwork, and sheer willpower. The story of the little skipper and 9 Lives remains one of the most extraordinary moments in aviation history. A story of fire, faith, and friendship, written across the skies of Germany on the last day of 1944. And while Rojan never saw himself as a hero, history remembers the flight that should have ended in tragedy, but instead became a legend. Because that day, two bombers didn't fall, they flew together.